So you're in the market for a used motorcycle, but you want to make sure you get the best deal possible. You're in the right place. Every single used bike I've ever bought, I've been able to use for months or even years and still make a profit once I sell it later. Today I'm telling you exactly how I find deals that good.
Perfect.
Welcome back to Life of Birch. This is Birch, and it's always awkward doing intros as people walk by, but that one just felt right, so we're gonna go with it. Oh yeah, I never get over the sound of this bike. Alright, so I get this question a lot, but especially once I just made that video about the Rebel 300 that I bought for $2,500, even though the MSRP on it is $4,600. Lots of you guys have been asking for advice on how to find the best deals on motorcycles, so I figured I'd break that down for you. So just as a backstory, if you guys are new to the channel, here's kind of a list of the bikes that I've bought and been able to sell for a profit. I bought a 2017 Rebel 300 for $2,000 and then sold it for $3,600 after using it for about 5 months. I bought a 1992 VFR 750 for $1,300, used it for 5 or 6 years and then sold it for $2,000. I bought a 2006 VFR 800 for $2,000, rode it for probably 7 or 8 months and then sold that one for $3,600, and the list goes on and on. Now, none of these bikes I actually bought to flip or make a profit off of it. It just so happens that I found such a good deal on it that once I was able to sell it, I did make a profit off of it. So I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I do to find deals that good. Now, before I get started, make sure to go ahead and subscribe if this is your first time finding the channel, because obviously you're into motorcycle content and I got tons of it, and we'll just jump straight into it. Alright, so finding a good deal on a motorcycle is kind of like a multi-step process, so I'm going to walk you guys through exactly what I do to find the deal, and at the end I'll tell you what I think is the most important aspect to finding a good deal. So first things first, let's talk about where I find all these good deals. Oh, as this lady's making a U-turn in front of me. It's your world, I'm just living in it. So the big three that I use to find deals on motorcycles are going to be Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and OfferUp. I'd say probably in that order. Now, I'm on there literally every single day looking at motorcycles, and I think that's kind of like a key part of finding good deals, is just keeping an eye on the market at all times, because not only does that help you be one of the first person to see the deals when they pop up, but if you're looking at the market every single day, it also gives you a really good grasp on what a good deal actually is. For example, if you're looking for a Honda Rebel 300, I'll use that as an example because that's the bike that I just bought. Keeping an eye on the market is important because it doesn't really matter what the bikes are listed for necessarily, because that's not always what they sell for. So for example, if you're watching the market and you see a Rebel 300 and it's listed for $5,000, that doesn't mean that it's worth $5,000. If you're watching the ad and you notice like, wow, this has been up for 2 weeks, obviously that bike's not priced right, and that $5,000 isn't what you should expect to pay, because if it was worth that, somebody would have paid it already. And then conversely, if you see a Rebel 300 that's listed for $3,000 and you're like,
okay, I mean, that's cheaper than the other ones, but is it actually a good deal?
And then you see that it gets sold a day or two later, that's a pretty good indicator that that is a good price, and you should kind of keep an eye on them as soon as you see a price like that, because it's going to go fast. So keeping an eye on the market like that kind of helps you just stay as knowledgeable as possible on what prices to actually expect to pay, and I feel like it's kind of a better gauge than the Kelley Blue Book or like Nada values or anything like that, because it kind of gives you an idea as to what exactly they're selling for. Now obviously you don't know exactly what they sell for because it's not like they post the sold price or whatever, but the idea is that you can tell based off of the price and how long it's been listed and how fast they sell a good ballpark for what a quote-unquote good deal is. Now, aside from personally watching the market every single day, I also set up some of those apps or websites to kind of watch the market for me, and what I mean by that is that on Facebook and OfferUp, you can actually set it to have notifications to notify you as soon as anything with certain keywords pops up. So again, let's say you're looking for a Rebel 300. What I do is I go on Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp. As far as I know, Craigslist does not have this feature, and essentially you can go in and they have like keyword search terms that you can get notified for. So if I'm looking for a Rebel 300, I'll put in Honda Rebel, Rebel 300, and Honda Rebel 300. And what that does is anytime a listing with those keywords pops up, it'll notify you immediately so that you're one of the first people to see it. Now that's really nice for a few reasons. For one thing, not everybody has the time to just spend an hour on all these different apps and websites looking at bikes every day, so it kind of just like does the work for you and alerts you as soon as something pops up. But it's also nice because you end up being one of the first people to see it, and when there's a really good deal, speed is a big factor. So again, for example, the Rebel 300 that I just bought, I saw that as soon as it popped up, and it was a really good deal. So that's the kind of thing that's not going to be around in 2 or 3 days or whatever. You need to jump on it right away. So having those notifications turned on was huge. Now, building off of the idea that speed is really key here, it's also really important to always always keep cash on hand for whatever bike you're looking to buy. And the reason for that is because as soon as a good deal pops up, you're not going to be the only one that knows that it's a good deal. Everybody else who's been looking for these bikes is going to think the same exact thing.
Holy crap, this is a crazy deal. I need to get it before somebody else does.
And if you have cash on hand and they have to take time to go to the ATM and God forbid their bank is closed and they got to wait until the next business day to get the money out, or like, for example, there's been times where a bike has popped up on a Sunday night and the next day is a holiday. If somebody doesn't have their money out and ready, they're not going to be able to get to that bike until Tuesday, but I can get there on Sunday and beat them by 2 days and end up with the bike. Because you got to think, most people who are selling bikes for that good of a deal, they know that it's a good deal and they're posting it for that price because they just want to get rid of it. They don't want to worry about tire kickers or people wasting their time or anything. So if somebody reaches out and they're like, hey, I'm really interested, but I can't get there for 2 days, and they already have a line of people that want to see it, they're not going to waste their time with that, and it's just going to go to the first person who has the cash. So if that person is you, that's how you have the advantage. Now, another big advantage you can have is taking advantage of the seasons. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody like me who lives in Maryland, there's only so long of a riding season that most normal riders ride. Anytime from spring to fall, and then typically winter, nobody's getting on their bike because it's 30 degrees or less out. Now, what that means for you as a buyer is the time of year like this in November is a great time to be looking for bikes, in my opinion, because as it gets colder, there might be less bikes on the market, but the people who are selling are motivated. They need to get rid of those bikes. It's not like during the spring and summer where they're like,
Oh, I'll see how much I can get for my bike.
it's getting cold out, and they know that not a lot of people are riding, so if they're selling, it's because they need that cash and they need to get rid of the bike fast. Not only that, but during the winter and the cold months, you have a lot less competition. During the spring and summer, everyone can take a 75-degree day off to go pick up a bike and check it out and ride it home. But when it's 30 degrees out, your competition is a lot less because there's not a lot of people sitting around like,
You know what? I should get a new bike and ride it home today.
so anytime that you have less competition, you have a lot more leverage. And mind you, just because you buy a bike when it's cold out does not mean that you have to ride the bike home. Don't think like, oh, you know what? I found a good deal, but I'm not going to ride it home in 30-degree weather. The deal's not worth that. To give you just kind of like an insight, my Rebel 300 that I just got for $2,500, we drove from Maryland to Pennsylvania to pick it up. It was about an 8-hour round trip, and it was 48 degrees and raining the day that we went to get it. I'm not going to ride the bike back in that weather, but I'm also not going to miss out on a deal like that. So I went on Turo, I rented a truck, I went to U-Haul, I rented a trailer, and the trailer was only like $120 for the rental, and the truck was probably about similar. So you figure if you're finding a good enough deal, $240 tacked onto the deal probably isn't make or break if it means you actually get the bike. So just something to think about, because lots of people might see a bike and be like, oh yeah, it's a great deal, but it's cold out and I can't go get it. If the deal's that good, just throw down an extra couple $100 and the bike is yours. So that's pretty much the basics of how I find all the good deals that I find. I'm not going to touch on like the negotiation tactics or anything like that, because everybody negotiates differently, and honestly, most of those deals that I just talked about were deals that were so good I didn't have to negotiate. Myself and the seller both knew how good of a deal it was, and it was just whoever gets there first with cash gets it, and I'm totally cool with that. But we still haven't talked about what I think is the most important part about finding a good deal. So first, let's cover all of the basics that we just talked about, and then I'll talk about the most important thing in my eyes. So we talked about keeping an eye on the market every single day, which means that you're as knowledgeable as possible and you see all the deals first. We talked about setting up notifications through all the different apps so that, again, you're the first person to see the deal when it pops up and you don't have to spend as much time searching yourself. We talked about having cash on hand at all times when you're looking for a bike, because that means that you have the speed advantage and you can get there first with cash in hand, and you have a huge advantage over the buyers who have to stop and go to the bank or wait for the banks to reopen or anything like that. Lord have mercy, this view never gets old. God, I love it. And then lastly, we talked about kind of the seasonal advantage and how a trailer can help you there. If you're looking in the colder months, obviously you have less competition and the deals are going to be better because the bikes have to be sold, and you don't have to be afraid of the cold because you can buy a trailer, or rent a trailer and still go pick up that bike without any discomfort and craziness of riding home in 30-degree weather. Road closed. What in the heck? Road closed to vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Okay, well, what if I go down here and end things off with an epic view while I talk about the most important thing? I've never done this before, so, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully nobody calls the cops or anything. As always on Life of Birch, do as I say, not as I do. I'm not recommending you do this, but this is super dope, so how could I pass this up? Alright, real quick before we get kicked out, let's talk about what I think the most important part about finding a great deal on a used motorcycle is, and that is patience. Patience is key. Without patience, you will not find the right deal. I mean, you might get lucky and the great deal will pop up right away, but most likely you're going to have to wait to find a deal as good as the deals that I was talking about. And when I say wait, I mean I'm looking literally every single day day, so sometimes it'll take months for me to find a good deal. For example, again, the Rebel 300 that I just bought, I was looking for probably 2 or 3 months for good deals. I went and checked out one bike in person, and it just didn't seem like a good deal because it was beat up a little bit. And I messaged probably countless sellers just to find out that the title was salvaged, or the bike had been laid down, or they didn't show something in pictures or something like that. So the key is just don't give up hope when all that happens. Don't give up hope when you go and check out a bike and it looks like crap in person. Don't give up hope when somebody sells a bike out from underneath you when you've already set up a time to meet and go look at it. Patience is key. Even if it takes months, the deal is going to be worth it, I promise. And then you end up with deals where you buy a motorcycle, ride it for 2 years, and then you're able to sell it 2 years later and still make a profit off of it, and you're essentially getting paid to ride a freaking motorcycle. I mean, isn't that the dream? Isn't that what everybody wants? Alright, so there you have it. All of my tips, tricks, and secrets as to how I find all the good deals that I do on used motorcycles. I'm no expert, but I figured I would weigh in because so many of you guys asked, and hopefully it helps somebody out. I'm going to go ahead and just soak in this view for a little while and enjoy the 65-degree November weather while we still have it. All I need you guys to do is go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Same deal as always. And of course, check out the Patreon page if you want to support the channel in that way. Shout out to all of my current Patreon members. You guys are the backbone of this channel, so I appreciate you guys more than you know. That's going to do it for this one, guys. If you have any tips and tricks on finding good deals that I didn't mention, leave them down in the comments. But other than that, I'm getting out of here. Love you guys. Peace.